Well, as we were discussing there, Mark and I, and Saturday, critically important by-election for Labor leader Anthony Albanese. Lose this, and its leadership could be finished, or the beginning of the end. And this election is for the seat of Eden-Monaro, which circles Canberra and then goes all the way to the New South Wales coast around Queanbeyan. It's been held by Labor, and that's why, as I said earlier, that's going to be big trouble for Albanese if he loses it, because that hasn't been done. An opposition losing a seat to the government in a by-election hasn't been done for 100 years. And Anthony Albanese today sounded anything but confident that he won't in fact be the first. Sounded like he was already making excuses.
Scott Morrison started this by-election campaign ahead. It's the day that Mike Kelly, a very popular local member, resigned from Parliament. Our vote went from 51 to 48. That's according to Anthony Green, estimates he's worth about 3% of the vote. And it's during a time where it's very difficult to campaign. It's once in a 100-year pandemic, and that was the last time that a seat changed in terms of a by-election.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister was campaigning like it was the Labor Party that really was on the rack here.
And a vote for Labor is a vote for uncertainty. It's a vote for chaos. It's a vote for the disunity that we're seeing right across the Labor ranks, the chaos we're seeing with all sorts of... I mean, there's a corruption inquiry into Labor currently. That's not my word. That is the words of the Labor member for Holt. And so to reward that this weekend, I'm sure even Labor voters are very disappointed with what they're seeing from their own party.
Well, that might be a bit of a long bow, but there you go. Joining me, Graham Richardson, former Labor Minister and Sky News host, and Fiona Scott, former Federal Liberal MP. Graham, the two main candidates are both women, the Liberals' Fiona Cotvoys and Labor's Christy McBain, a former mayor. What do you think are the issues that will actually decide this election?
I don't think there's any particular local issue that's going to decide it. Yes, the bushfires were a huge deal and McBain did very well in them, but I'm not sure that decides the issue. And in any event, Queanbeyan wasn't as affected as the other end. And what will happen on Saturday, I think the election will be decided in Queanbeyan. If Barilaro had run, then I believe Labor would lose on Saturday. Such is the popularity of Barilaro in Queanbeyan. I've seen research on it. It is remarkable that he can make inroads into what is normally a solid Labor vote, but he does it, and we could not beat him. But I don't believe anybody else can win it for the coalition, so McBain will win and win reasonably well.
John Barilaro, of course, the New South Wales Deputy Premier, leader of the Nationals, was going to run and then amazingly sort of self-detonated, saying that he wasn't getting support from the federal Nationals leader and the Liberals who were wide anti. It was just a joke, bad start. Fiona Scott, what's your read on how this election's going?
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily agree with everything Richo said, but I'm sure you wouldn't expect me to. But the one thing I absolutely agree with Richo on is that Queanbeyan is absolutely critical. And what I've been told from campaigners on the ground is that the booth to watch on the night will be Queanbeyan Central. And whoever has the lead on that booth will potentially run away with the seat. So, Richo, you're completely on the money there about Queanbeyan. But look, from my experience in local campaigns, they do come down to local issues and local integrity. And look, there's a lot of things here that is going to be a challenge. I think we do have two fantastic female candidates amongst the Labor candidate and the Liberal candidate. They're two very good women. But at the end of the day, you're going to want a candidate that's in government, a candidate with direct access to the Prime Minister. And really, if you look at it across the country, where else has there been more trauma than somewhere like Eden-Monaro, except for maybe Gippsland? I mean, this is an area that has dealt with the back of the drought. They've dealt with floods. They've dealt with horrific bushfires. You have 1,000 people without a house, living in caravans and tents and temporary accommodation that are in that electorate. There's a lot of trauma in that electorate that needs to be dealt with. And I think there's no time like now but to have a local member that has direct access to the Prime Minister. And I think that's what you have in Fiona Cotvoys. And the other thing about her is that she's got the experience.
Well, if I can put the counter argument to that,
Graham,
because as long as we're going to have a political pitch, I've got to get mine in. I've got to get mine in.
Fiona's doing a great job, Graham. I better even it up before we run out of time on this one.
Sorry.
Give the counter view.
Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. I appreciate it. While it may be the case that you say you want to have a role in government, sometimes government needs such a shake-up, such a boot up the Khyber, that they get the message. And the way to give them the message, the way to give them a solid boot, is to give McBain a big majority. That'll frighten the hell out of the government, and it'll just change the whole way that they're performing. And they need to kick up. They need to kick up the Khyber, and I tell you what, on Saturday they're going to get one.
Why?
Well, I tell you what,
Great
such familiar
right where it
arguments. Honestly, these are generic arguments from you both. Generic arguments from you both. You've got to be in government to have a voice, to have the role that counts, or you've got to be in opposition to give them a G up. It's not specific to this election, but maybe that's the whole thing about this. This is just one of those generic by-elections. We shall see, in which case Labor should win it.
I don't think it is generic. I think it's an important by-election. I think it's really important for that area.
Oh, of course.
You know?
Yeah. No, well, it'd be interesting. I mean, really, the Liberals should romp it in if Scott Morrison's personal popularity is a guide. But I think we're going to see, again, a disconnect between the fact a leader can be very, very popular, but his party not so. So we shall see.
Yeah.